have now reached the intersection where ideas, beliefs, and perspectives collide. So be free to be you. It's the Crossroads Podcast with your hosts, author, speaker, and transformational strategist, Barzini and entrepreneur, empowerment coach, and tech diva, Dre Renee. If you're ready to talk love, business, politics, and everything in between, you're in for a ride. Welcome to the Crossroads Podcast.
What's going on, everybody? It's your man, Hunter Grant, your personal agent for change, making life easy, Barzini.
And I'm fempreneur extraordinaire and tech diva all day, Dre Renee.
And this is the Crossroads, where there's only one rule: be free to be you. All right, so today's episode, y'all, we had this whole conversation again and didn't record it. But we're going to jump in. Today's episode is called Race to the Worst. And I guess, the topic started, I posted this post, and I admittedly, I was trolling a little bit. All right, I like engagement, and I knew it was going to be, it was worded specifically for engagement, and I knew people were going to kind of jump at it. But I knew people were going to jump at it because of this thing that we do that I call the race to the worst, is jumping. We always have to jump to this thought process that somebody has to be wrong between each other, and men and women, as far as their plight in life. You know what I mean? Like, somebody, it's always like good guy or bad guy, and not this thought that, hey, this is the set of things that we go through, and also this is the set of things that we go through, you know, and they're different, and neither are solely to blame for either, but they exist. So the post, Eric Benet had made a post, and I'm paraphrasing, where he said science got it wrong and made birth control for the wrong gender, and saying that birth control should be made for men. And I guess the premise was because women only have one pregnancy at a time, and men can have can create as many babies, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I didn't respond, but I added to the post that said, I don't know what was. I know we had a rough time in the pandemic, but I forgot, or I missed the part rather, where men were able to give birth. Now,
always
now
want to be starting. Got to be starting something.
But the reality is, men don't give birth, so we wouldn't have a birth control pill. You know what I mean? But they were taking it as to say that men shouldn't use contraceptives, men shouldn't be part of the process to, you know, be safe, and control. And that wasn't what I meant at all. I was simply saying men don't give birth, so this particular method wouldn't be for men. It doesn't exist for us.
Right.
And so there was a whole lot of feelings, a whole lot of listen, I can't even remember how many comments the post got before I shut it down, but it was just a whole lot. I was even going back and forth with my cousin. And
is it gone?
No, it's not gone. I just shut it down.
Okay.
It's not deleted, so I'll show it to you. We can kind of go through it again. But there was just interesting comments, and it was just basically like, well, men should be responsible and all this other stuff. And in my head, there was a lot that I didn't say, but it's kind of like we have this thing to where a lot of women want to control the narrative from both sides, right? When it's your choice, if we're talking you're already pregnant, if we're having like the abortion conversation, or even whether or not you take birth control, we're not supposed to have any say so in that. But yet we're having an entire discussion that says men should be the one that are on birth control. Now, even if it existed for us, whether we choose to do that or not would be our choice. But the narrative was being pushed. Now, granted, in transparency, if there was a pill that men could take and have sex without condoms and not get women pregnant without side effects, that line would be so ridiculous. Like, I don't know very many men that would have a problem taking that pill.
And the same for women, without side effects. Like I think that is the thing overall. I don't think women are against birth control for the sake of being against birth control, but there are risky things that happen along with taking them. So you probably made the point of the women that were in your post, at least somewhat.
No, I didn't make the point because they didn't get the point. They was arguing the point. They wanted to tell me what my point was. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that men don't have babies. Like, that's literally all I'm saying. Like, it doesn't exist for us because we don't have babies. We don't get pregnant. And the market for that, it wouldn't even make good business sense to have because we don't get pregnant. You know what I mean?
But you know that they are lumping in birth control as contraceptives, the whole thing. Not.
Yeah, I know what they were doing. That's just not what I was doing. And they wanted me to be doing that.
I know, but that's, yeah. Okay. All right. So you just wanted to
be it was
and contrary.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was just like, I was quiet at first. I didn't respond. I said a few things to kind of keep the conversation going, but it was just real interesting how people wanted to project what they want me to mean onto me. No matter how many times I said, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I mean. Oh, well, you're implying. I'm not implying that. And if I'm like, my cousin called me a contrarian. And then I was like, wait, hold up. How you coming? You acting like this wasn't my post. How can I be a contrarian from my own point? Like, no, I'm making a point. You're the one arguing my point. You're the one telling me what I mean after I've told you numerous times, no, this is what I'm saying, not this. And you're still like, she was going for hours. And I'm like, if you don't knock it off. But at the same time, it really, what I realized is this. In all honesty, this is what I knew before I even hit submit, or post, was it had zero to do with what was said and everything to do with people's lens about the subject matter, right? And so it was this thing where the women on the post wanted men to experience what they go through, right? Well, y'all should do this and y'all should do, and I'm kind of like why? You know what I mean? And it was this whole thing where we have it worse than you. And that's what I'm saying, like the race for the worst. And it's like, when it comes to childbirth and pregnancy and all that, yeah, women, get the shorter end of the stick, to say, and that's putting it like mild.
Hopefully they don't.
All right. Well, what I mean, the shorter end of the stick is men don't go through the physical taxation that women go through, carrying the baby for 9 months, what your body goes through, hormone changes, like the risk and all this other, like, I can't even name everything that you go through. I don't even know everything that you go through, let alone when I experience it. But that's one side of the coin of things that you go through as women, where men have their own set of things that we go through in our life. No, we don't get pregnant, you know what I mean? But there's things to where it might be have a greater tax on our life. And so we do this thing, though, that when we bring up one thing that on one side of what we go through, it's, oh, well, y'all need to shut up because we go through this. Or that's nothing. It's like a one up, and we have to have this battle about who has it the worst. And I've just always wondered, like, why? Like, why do we need to do that? Why do we need to compete for trauma, basically?
Right.
Right.
Well, the way that I looked at it was, women often seek to be understood and heard and seen and validated. It just is what it is. And so I'll at least say from our side, generally, it can look like a one-up, but it's mostly like, just see my side, understand what I'm going through, take it at face value, validate it at least to say, I hear you, even if you don't understand, even if you don't agree, versus let me end my sentence and you're already on top of the period as a colon, a semicolon, you know, just to continue on in your way. And maybe you guys feel the same way, but I know, you know, some of these conversations on Facebook, but definitely when, you know, all the homies get together, it's like, you know, yeah, we can't even let somebody's point breathe because let me tell you why you're wrong, or let me tell you why we have it worse. And I believe a lot of that,
or even why this doesn't happen to you.
Right. And a lot of it is, you know, I want you to see me. I know you don't know what childbirth is like, and honestly, neither do I. But I know, I know. Or I know you don't know, you know, what having a menstrual cycle is like and all that goes with it. But if I tell you, you know, between this day and this day, I'm not feeling it. I don't feel well. I'm a little irritable. I'm tired. I got cramps. Whatever, you know, the person tells you, it's like, dude, let that ride. And I mean, if you care about it, if this is someone you're in a relationship with, then maybe you're going to do something to kind of help her through those days. If it's somebody that's just a homie or whatever, then you have a little framework, you know, to work with. But I feel like often it's like, well, it's not that bad, or, you know, because you guys are in the whole suck it up culture. I think, you know, you want us to be down with that. And some women are just, some are, but
yeah, but see, I don't even know if it's about like telling y'all to suck it up. You can't say that. I mean, if that was the case, we wouldn't be talking about pregnancy. But but no, so okay, so I think it's why I think it's more about a feeling than the facts is because you and I can be, let's just say this, where we can be debating childbirth, right? You and I on the show. And I could have opinions and be talking about this, and everybody would say, shut up because I'm a man and I shouldn't have an opinion, or I can't talk about childbirth, right? However, you haven't had children yet, and yet you just admitted you don't know what it's like either. But
I'm not going to talk about it either.
No. I'm just saying, but you could because you're a woman. It's not about whether or not you've experienced it. It's you can experience it, or because you're a woman, you get an opinion on it. You see what I'm saying? Even let's just say you never wanted children. So is it really about understanding the experience or the fact that you can't experience it? You know what I mean? And then there's just a whole fine line of semantics you can play because hey, well, if you're a woman that can't have children and you'll never experience it, so then do you get an opinion then? Is it a gender thing or is it an experience thing? Is you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
it's more experience thing because that's how people are about those of us who don't have kids. They feel like we shouldn't be able to speak on how to raise kids, but I don't have to have one to know when one is terrible.
But if that's the case, as a man, I know childbirth is painful. I know women go through life-threatening changes during pregnancy.
Okay.
And like, so do I need to experience it to know that?
No, not to know that. But I feel like there's a degree, right? So, like I said, if I'm watching a child act out or whatever, I can have an opinion about what I see. But there are things that I absolutely don't see, and there are things that I don't know. And I can't speak to those things because they're out of my purview. They're not things that I would experience, that I see. I'm making my analysis based on what I know. And so, yes, I have a niece and nephew. I've been around children, so I can at least speak to that part. There are a lot of things as a man, a lot of things that you will never experience or understand on that level. Now, to say, hey, you know, I have sisters or my mom or whatever, I've witnessed this, and so blah, 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 blah. But it's still, I think there's an extent versus, you know, being like an absolute authority. And I'm not saying you, anybody, you know,
right.
And it doesn't have to, the reason I brought up the whole child parental thing is because it doesn't necessarily have to be gender specific, right? Parents, regardless, like if you're not a parent, they don't want you telling them anything for the most part.
And but then there's certain purviews. So like if we're talking facts, and I think my point is we're rarely talking facts. You know what I mean? Because again, somebody would listen to you. Like right now, we have the same experience when it comes to childbirth. Basically, you know what I mean? Like you have a sibling who has kids. You know, you've spent time. Like I have a sibling who has kids. The two siblings that have kids. Right. I've seen the same things. I've witnessed the same things as you. Like, no, I can't and will never have children. You can when you decide to. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, it's like, do but we still won't get the same leash as far as credence of our opinion based on our gender. Because you're a woman, you'll always have more credence whether you have children or not. But so that's what I'm saying.
What is it that you're trying to express that you feel would not be received because you're a man?
I think I'm just I don't know if it's what I'm trying to express. It's just trying to pinpoint the genesis, right? That it's about feelings, not facts. You know what I mean? Because if we're talking about you, the fact is you've not yet given birth.
Right.
But the fact is also you get an opinion on the matter because you're a woman. And so you are looked at as being able to connect with the feelings of women, whereas I cannot because I'm a man. I can understand or I can hear, but because I can't experience. And so what I'm not saying is that I want that leeway to be able to have all these things. I'm just saying the genesis of the feeling is based on certain things and not facts. You know what I mean? Because the reality is you have a lot of women who learn about these things from doctors who are men, right? And so from a medical POV, he's educated a lot of women and women doctors too, of course. But what I mean is like there can be a man who has medical expertise in all these things and understands everything and is telling you what your body is experiencing, and he still won't have, he only gets a certain level of opinion or credence because he's still a man and he knows about it, but because he can't experience it, he's looked upon a certain way. So my general thing is that I'm saying that's where a lot of the commentary was coming from on the post is the genesis of the feeling, because the majority of them that were saying that were not parents. They weren't mothers. They hadn't been pregnant. You know what I mean? Mm. So it was the feeling as, hey, this is what women. So it was women banding together. I'll say that. I think that's the best way to put it.
Like, I need an example of what you could say that's not accepted that I could say that was accepted. But if you're saying it's more so like,
well, hell, the fact that I'm saying men can't have babies, apparently I can't say that. You know what I mean?
I'm like, I don't know what
men can't. And the crazy part, I was actually advocating more for women. Like, we keep getting told what we will never understand because we can't have kids. And then when I say, hey, nah, it shouldn't be made for, or men, they don't make it for men because men can't do this. Men don't carry life. Men don't usher life into this world like that. Only women can do that. And they have this pill because of the myriad of things that women go through, and they don't want to go through that. So they take the pill or the shot, or, but that's not how it was received. And I get it because how I worded it.
Right. And I was going to say, so your post aside, and what that was set up to do you not understand the viewpoint? Because if we take birth control, we take those words off the table and we say contraceptive, or you say whatever word feels good for you right there. Are you still kind of opposed, or you saying you never were opposed, but do you understand what's being presented if the words birth control were not included?
No, yeah. Here's the thing. I understand what they were saying. What I'm saying is I am the one that made the initial statement. So the question would be, do they understand what I was saying?
Right, but I'm asking you.
Right, no, I get I understand what they were saying.
Right.
I just kept trying to tell them that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying any of that. Like, y'all are debating a point I never made. You're debating statements I never made. And so you're bringing your personal, you're projecting your personal viewpoint and wanting me to have said this thing, and I never said it. You know what I mean? And so it turns out to, well, y'all, men. Right. And I'm like, we didn't do anything to you. And so it turned into men can have such and such babies and everything else. And I'm like, so what? Like, what does that have to do with you? You know what I mean? Just like you getting pregnant, And a bunch of men like, oh, you shouldn't have, like who are we to tell you what you should have done with your body or supposed to do with your body rather? And I think that's where it is. It's telling anybody what they're supposed to be doing or what they should and shouldn't be doing. And we do it on both sides. You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
so
I get that. I'm just trying to dissect the general issue away from what happened in that post. And I feel like the initial thought around what Eric Benet was saying was, or at least how I took it, was make this equal. Make this not just be a woman's responsibility to take a pill. Yes, she's responsible for birth, but she's not responsible for conception, not by herself. Like, it takes two parties. So if it takes two parties, even though she houses what happens and brings it into the world, why not have opportunities on the man's side and on the woman's side to take something, if they decide that they don't want that to happen. So that's how I took it. And for me to take it that way, if I didn't know you, I would then take your statement to mean, no, men don't need to have that responsibility because we can't give birth. And so I don't know if that's what you were saying, but I'm quite sure that's how people were taking it, and that's why it was the
no. So what I mean is when he's operating in hyperbole. One, you're talking about a should and a hypothetical, like, and then you say science got it wrong. How does science get it wrong when this is what biology has done? This is what God has done. He created women to carry children, right? We as people, as men, have decided, hey, we want to kind of put something in the way of that. Okay, fine. If you choose.
So was that what he was meaning about science got it wrong?
That he said they made birth control for the wrong gender, that it shouldn't be made for women.
Okay, well, I ain't gonna put that on God. That ain't God. That's man that did that.
Right. Well, exactly. So what I'm saying is it's made for, like, you're talking about something that doesn't exist for men. You know what I mean? So, and to say science got it wrong, you think they didn't think of that? You think they're not trying to make that, like?
But we live in a patriarchal society, though. Everything is about you guys. So
I don't think it's about patriarchy as much as it is biology. Like, it just, I don't think for a second that it's not being or hasn't been attempted. It's not. What I'm saying is, I don't think hey, don't make this for men, give it to women. Is it possible?
Really? All of y'all that don't want to get snipped, but you sending her on to get clipped, tied, burned, whatever happens to the tubes? Exactly. See how you just did that? And that's what it is. It's like,
what I'm saying,
let it be.
No, that gesture was, I'm not disagreeing with you. Yeah, there's hella men that don't want to get snipped. And they choose not to. Just like a woman has a choice. If she don't want her tubes tied, she don't have to tie them. If she don't want to take birth control, she doesn't have to take it.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
Just like if men don't want to wear like whatever, it's all a choice. And we just have to be prepared with what comes with those choices. So what we're doing in this conversation.
But the male birth control is not a choice because it hasn't been made. So I think
exactly.
That's the point.
Right. But no, it's why hasn't it been made? Because
you got it.
Right, no, and it's not. I don't believe it's about patriarchy. Like, there's enough shit that we can put on patriarchy. Then that, like, I don't think everything is patriarchy. There is enough shit that the patriarchy is. You know what I mean?
So does that mean one more thing couldn't be added to the pile?
I'm not saying that couldn't. I'm saying I don't think that's what this particular thing is. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, we can have a number of shows to talk about the ills of the patriarchy, and which I am not a part of, because you know what I mean. That's a whole nother conversation.
Right.
So, but what I am saying is, it's not. It just doesn't exist because of whatever biologically they haven't figured out. You know what I mean? If it was that easy, it would be there, and we would have a choice of whether or not we take it. And I venture to say, more men than not would take it. Like, if I had a choice between wearing condoms all the time, like, how many dudes have you had to have the conversation with about wearing a condom? Not to say that you had sex with a whole but dudes,
I was just like, what?
Like, that's yeah, you was like, wait a minute, where do I go? It's like, that's a conversation. You know what I mean? And so that's something. If the pill exists for men, like, hey, that's a conversation that's had less.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, people ain't out there having safe sex. Like, let's
I'm about to
get
get
real. There's a certain
that's all in the deal. Okay, is
yeah. That's hey, shouts out. You know what I'm saying? Make it happen. But
for saying that.
I personally believe if it existed for men, well, I would say for me and my sex life, that would be a better option than condoms. I would definitely take that option. You know what I mean?
Okay, so
barring.
No, go ahead. Finish your sentence.
No, so like it was being taken like I'm against contraceptives. I'm against like, or if like I'm against if it existed for men, that I would be against it, and I'm not. I'm actually super pro. Like, hey, sign me up. Like, you know what I mean?
So why didn't you? Okay, I know why you didn't, because content for the show. Shout out to that. But aside from that, why was your post not, you know what, Brother Benet, I agree, except it's not.
I don't agree with him.
Control. That's what I'm saying. Except it's not birth control. Like, you're saying I'm actually for this, which
if it existed.
What he's saying.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not for what he's saying. Okay,
you're for the option of men to be able to take some sort of oral pill or whatnot, or
shot or whatever the hell, like,
or what have you.
Yeah,
that is what he is saying, right? That's not what
that is not what I took him saying.
What? Okay, walk me through, because I can't read it. I have no idea where it is.
Yeah, he said science got it wrong. And that instead of there being birth control for women, it should be for men, not both, not an option for men.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Not for women. It should be for men. Okay. I don't agree with that.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
What I do agree with, if there was an option for men, bad. You know what I'm saying? Now, if we lived in a world to where the science and the biology and they had it and it only existed for men and it didn't exist for women, okay, bad. Like, that it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? So there's just certain things that exist for one side that don't, and it's a double standard. It doesn't really exist for the other. Okay, you know what I mean?
I understand. So the switch versus, because I was taking it as you as well, and he said you instead of me.
Right. It was more as, because I took it more as men is out here sticking and moving and making babies and blah 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 blah, and we need to like basically sterilize them. Like, control that because they out here doing it. You know what I mean? And so when you say science got it wrong, and because men can have this many babies, and like, so what? You know what I'm saying? If he out there sowing a seed, that's his problem. He the one got to pay for them. He the one got to go to court for them. He the one got to deal with however many baby mamas, you know what I'm saying? Or not, like, whatever it is, that's his life. And so the same way that we don't want to control women's bodies and their choices and everything else, don't do it to men either. You know what I mean? And so it's we can't double talk. If we're going to advocate and agree to empowering women and letting them have their choice unimpeded and shutting up about what they do with their bodies, okay, let's shut up about what men do with their bodies. Because we all have choices and we all need to be responsible for our life and our life choices. So to say, because we do this thing to say one should be more responsible than the other. Right? Oh, well, women, you the ones get pregnant, you carry the baby, so you need to be responsible. I agree with that. Men, you out here, you got to be, you out here making babies, you need to be more responsible. You need to strap up. I agree with that. We need to be equally responsible. Like you said earlier, there's two people that's involved in making a baby. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's just asinine to me that we have to have these conversations about who is more responsible. Like, I literally had a conversation with this woman, was like, men should be more responsible, or men are more responsible. Oh, because you deposited inside her. I was like, did she not let me in? Did we not, outside of raping somebody, like, we had consensual sex, and then it a lot of times it is with a condom, and condoms break or whatever, and she still gets pregnant. You know what I mean? They're still like, they try to be responsible, and something still happened. There are women who are on birth control and probably took an antibiotic and still got pregnant. I know a couple of antibiotic babies. You know what I mean? So there's a lot more that goes into it rather than this fault conversation. And I think that's where we always go down this rabbit hole of whose fault is it? Who's got it the worst? Who shouldn't be responsible? And that's my point that I start going to, like, let's stop pointing the finger and passing the buck on who should be more responsible. You know what I mean? It's what you do with your body is your choice, but you need to be responsible for the choices that you make with your body and stop blaming somebody else.
Well, that part I agree with. I was like, oh, yeah.
Right. And I mean, it just like, and I always allude to that conversation that we had in Dallas at Dave and Buster's when we were talking about catcalling and stuff like that. And to where we couldn't have the conversation. Like, it was like, oh, you don't get catcalled as much as women do. I'm like, how do you know?
That was hilarious.
How do you know?
Like, somebody's face was like, word?
but let's keep it 100. Let's go back a few years ago. We're like,
I am.
Right. No. So, hey, let's keep it real. When I walked in the party, what used to happen, because you was there and used to talk about me about it. Is that not catcalling?
That is good. I laughed, but it was so funny to see reactions of people.
Right.
What you mean? I was like, well.
So okay, so something super funny happened, and it made me look super arrogant. Not that I need any help with that. So I walked into a bar. That sounded like a bad joke. I walked into a bar, right?
Walked into a bar, yeah.
So I was meeting some friends from work at a bar, and when I walked in, it was this table of women, and they just start like cheering, like clamoring, right?
Cheering.
Yeah, they was like, ah, like, you know, like back in the day. And I just kept it pushing. I didn't look over there. I didn't go over there. Nothing. I just, I went over to where my friends are, and so they were like, "Damn!" Like I was like, I made this face like, "Shit, I'm used to it." And so the joke was on me because, like, it must have been like 20 minutes later. I looked over there, and it was my staff sitting in the booth. So. And I didn't see him. I was like, oh, they are talking so bad about me right now. So I went over there. They was like, nah, don't come over.
Yeah. I don't blame them. Like,
so I had the whole table around as an apart. I was like, I swear to God, I didn't know who y'all were. And they were like, so women just be cheering when you walk in a place? And I was like, I was like, well, once upon a time, So, like, but yeah, the catcalling conversation, for me, it was, why does it matter whether it happens as frequently as opposed to the fact that it happens at all? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so at first it was, oh, well, you don't get catcalled. It was, yeah, I do. Oh, well, it's not as much as, like, what does it matter? I know how it feels.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so it was like at every turn, no matter what, it had to be invalidated because of the perception that women go through it more. And yeah, I can absolutely say it happens to women more. That's what men do. And then for us, we have to act like we're comfortable with it or that we like it because that's how we're socialized. Like, oh, if women, it's like, oh, that's supposed to be a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. But it's not all the time.
Right.
You can be at work. I'm trying to be professional, and somebody making comments or this, that, and the third. And if you respond, if you even remotely respond in a certain way, that's going to be a shift. Depending on position. And like, look, I ain't all with the sexual harassment, everything else. You know what I mean? Because you never know how that's going to flip. So the discomfort comes with what could potentially happen with these scenarios, like in the workplace or anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I think just more is at stake because if you consider, like, For women, I think it's more, and I don't want to speak for women, so you can kind of respond to this. That is it the feeling more of your physical safety when it comes to like the catcalling part? Because for men, it's more about the emotional safety. Like she's making advances and then you don't return her advances. It's, oh, you know what I'm saying? He did this or he did, like cops, jail, like all this stuff is going on. We don't feel physically unsafe, but like livelihood and all this other stuff, like there's still L's that we take. Whereas you don't accept a man's advances and he's going upside your head.
That part. Or it could happen.
Could, like you don't take it, like whatever.
I was this was a while ago, but I was in I don't know if I should name the city. I don't want to make nobody look bad. But
so you were in LA?
No, I wasn't. I was actually in Oakland.
I got an Oakland story. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was in Oakland and visiting family, and we were getting ready to go out to a club, getting dressed, and normals, like, okay, everybody need to know where everybody is, don't leave nobody, this type of thing. It was like, if somebody asks for your number, just go ahead and give it to them because they sock girls out up here. And I was like, what? Like that was the, now I've been called a few bitches, but my teeth were still intact and I didn't fear for my safety. I was like, okay, well, somebody mad because I won't give them my number. And so, they throw a bitch out, which is uncomfortable. And, nobody wants that either. But yeah, to feel like you could be, hit, slapped, pushed, whatever, as a result of exercising your right to like not be interested. I mean, before I was engaged, I was telling people I was engaged, thinking that might work because telling somebody you have a boyfriend didn't really work. They'd be like,
right. Can you have
I got him in, what your man got to do? It's been going on since then. What was that 1990? Right. So, so I mean, so I'm like, okay, let's elevate that a little bit and see, if engagement or marriage means something. Sometimes it does. So, but yeah, your physical safety, particularly, being alone, I think you might feel a little safer if you're with your girls. It's still uncomfortable, but you're like, okay, he's not going to try to get all of us. But if you're by yourself, you have a quick decision to make. And it sucks because that's not all men, of course, but you don't know which one you crossing on what day. So,
right. And I can only imagine that being hard because, like you said, it's not all men. It's not even the majority of men, but you can't take that chance and not being careful, especially in Oakland. Like, shout out to Oakland, but hey.
Listen, I had a great time there. Let me just say, I had a great time in Oakland and nothing happened. And see, I still have my teeth.
Listen, I had my night almost ended early, taken up for a woman in Oakland.
Oh,
yeah, it almost got like you know me and about being a punk and all this other stuff. My affect in anger.
Yeah. Glad I had on tennis shoes with grips on.
Yeah. Or yeah, you know me. You've seen me to that level. I'll say that. Whew. I've since grown. But we were coming out. We just did a show. And we were coming out the show. And my hands were full. I have like our clothes from the show and everything else. And so we were with some of the court, and she was the girls were walking ahead of us. And so there were some dudes out there. Mind you, it's like the summer and they got on these big old coats. And I'm like, all right, that's whatever. Right. And so they were walking in front of us. So dude is trying to holler at her, this little dude too. And so she was like, no, like telling him no. And he starts getting aggressive. So I walk up and I'm like, hey, what's up? And he's like, what's up? And I'm like, what's up? Oh, no. Now, what I didn't pay attention to until it was almost too late is he had his hands inside the sleeves of the coat. Like his hands were not outside of his sleeves. Oh. And so he like, what's up? I'm like, what's up? And all of a sudden that I just seen emerge from his sleeve was a damn hammer. It just slid down.
Oh.
And I'm standing there with my hands full and everything else. And he's like, "What's up?" I was like, "No, like, what's up? Like, how you doing, bro? You know, y'all good over here? Like, y'all know each other?"
That's a good thing. That was good.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to say, like, what's your name, bro? You know, I don't know if you understanding the context of what's up. So I'm explaining.
Right.
Really, yeah. So I had a decision to make real quick, and I could have dropped my stuff or whatever, but he wasn't alone. So he got a hammer. I don't know what his boys got.
Right.
And everything else. So
walking through the street with a hammer in their sleeve and then coming to talk to somebody like
it was Oakland. I don't know.
Sheesh.
I've not been back many times.
That's crazy.
It's crazy, you know. But everybody got their
hold my
their
hammer
thing,
while
you
I
know.
go holler at her. Like nobody got rid of the hammer. Like he approached her with a hammer.
Nah, because that hammer actually could have been, had I not walked up, the hammer could have been her.
Right. Oh, jeez.
So yeah, I don't know.
Worse. It would have been bad if it was you too.
Yeah, but see, that's not to say that cats in LA don't have their thing, but we from LA, so I think like I know how cats from LA move. You already know who's who, what's what, where's where.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy. But and that's the thing is we have our different challenges.
Right.
And so to the point of who has it worse, I don't think there is like I want to be careful in what I'm not going to be careful when I say right now.
Be free.
Like, fuck all of that. And I don't feel like it's a worse. I feel like it's a different.
It's a different, right.
You know, and so in that instance, her worse, it's like, yeah, this is this man and this woman, you know what I'm saying? And she doesn't want to talk to him, and she should be able to just say, no, I'm not interested, and still be safe and be able to walk away from that. And that wasn't the case. Whereas a man, I'm like, I now have a decision and or responsibility because I see this happening and I'm approaching it.
Right.
And do I not do anything, or do I have to do something because I'm a man? And then when I do step one, I'm stepping into the situation not knowing that he has a weapon, not knowing what other weapons they have. Mm-hmm. And he was quick to reveal the weapon when I came. Right. Because now I'm the threat. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. He looked at her as I'm going to exert my will, whereas he looked at me like, oh, you a threat, let me escalate. Mm-hmm. To where that hammer could have very well been a gun or whatever else. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so now as men, our part is we are expected to accept the higher levels of danger and without fear or hesitation. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. Now in that particular situation, she wasn't at fault. You know, she was just. But that's not always the situation. You know, you got that situation where somebody's popping off, you know, oh no, nigga, this, hit me then, hit me, hit me, bow. Oh my God, I can't believe you hit me. You know, it's a whole lot of different scenarios. And so it's, I wonder what it would take for us to, like you said earlier, see from the other side and see from each other's lens. Right. You know, the experience, and it can't just be one-sided though. Right. And I think for men, I think that's a huge feeling. I'm not saying that it's necessarily true that it's one-sided, but that's definitely the feeling.
And I think these conversations help. Like even if you know, the folks that are watching us or listening to us haven't had these conversations, maybe just by listening to this one, it's given them a thought that they didn't have before, and then they can start having these conversations in their own circles. But I think one of the main things, like regardless of what we're talking about, we have to listen, right? Like I had to, when you started talking, right, I had a different understanding. I was like, roll the tape, my face is looking all out of way, right? But you gotta sit through it. You gotta go through the whole recipe. You can't cut out ingredients in the middle. And so then I'm like, oh wait, you're actually saying this. Okay, I understand this. Still, whether or not I agree, I have a different understanding, or I have the understanding that I need to have, or the one that you're trying to make sure that I have, which I think is beneficial, but also realizing that we are different, right? So my fear and my potential experience being physically harmed is not greater because it's physical harm, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's greater or it's great because it's harm.
Mm-hmm.
Your experience is not lesser or greater because it's not physical harm, but it's great to you because it's harm, right? Because, I think of even like watching TV shows, right? So like you might look, and I'm not saying you do, but you might look at a situation where a woman is physically harmed and be like, oh, I could have took him. You're in that situation. I could have taken him. And then we might look at something where a woman is being manipulative, trying to sabotage your career or whatever. And we're like, I could have took her, or I could have flipped that situation, right? But the difference is the switch. And so men on the side of being accused or whatever like that, like you really don't have much of a leg to stand on because nobody wants to turn a blind eye or a deaf ear to an accusation, right? That that could be harmful to somebody. And the same, with physicality. So I think, definitely by listening to one another, and then, when you don't understand or you don't agree, just continue to have the conversation, but not necessarily to be right. And sometimes there is a right, but sometimes, like you said, it's not. It's just different. It's just different. Like me accepting that you have this hardship when it comes to potentially turning a woman down does not invalidate my experience of being fearful of turning a man down, right? Like they can both exist at the same time.
Right. They're not
So
mutually
just acknowledging that each person has an experience. So
right. And I think social media kind of exasperates this thing because it's what I've noticed is we aren't a fact based society anymore. You know what I mean? It's not about facts, it's about firsts. And whoever tells their story first, it's now incumbent upon the other person to disprove that, right? Like for instance, this Meg Thee Stallion and Tory Lane situation. I don't really know either nor a whole bunch about the situation.
I just asked somebody to explain, like, what's
yeah. Oh, I listen. I heard somebody got shot or shot at or supposedly got shot, and they was whatever the case, right? I guess her dude shot her in the foot or something like that,
right?
And her version came out first, so it was automatically. And he didn't say anything for a while. And I guess when he did say something, it was a song or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, he did like some sort of mixtape or something.
Right. I don't know. So like I said, I'm not caping for either of them. I don't really know them like that, nor the situation. I just do know her version came out first. And so everybody was caping for her. And I think I commented on one thread. I was like, the reality is none of us were there to know what actually happened or who did what. Like only they know. Maybe. But then when we look at like Chris Brown and Rihanna, you know what I mean? We weren't in the car when that happened. We do know she did get beat up. And because he admitted to that. And what we don't talk about is anything that happened before that, because the only thing that mattered is that happened to society. You know what I'm saying? It didn't matter whether she hit him first. It didn't matter whether he felt he needed to defend himself. It only mattered that a man hit a woman. And it's just largely accepted that no matter what, you should never hit a woman.
Right.
So, but based on his story, she was scratching him up, kicking him, threw the keys out the window, like, and he snapped. And I'm not excusing him, but I just think that, like the pregnancy conversation, there has to be a level of responsibility on both sides for what we do to one another.
Absolutely. Let me say, because I had this conversation with some girlfriends. So, okay, I do watch trash reality TV. That's how I unwind. Judge your mama. Not you, but whoever's judging.
I do judge my mama sometimes.
So I was watching Marriage Boot Camp, Hip Hop Edition. You know who Tahiri is? Joe Budden?
I do not. Listen, reality, you might as well just tell your story because all these references are going to be lost on me.
Okay, well, somebody knows. Somebody's watching it.
Unless if you're going to ever bring a reality reference, you got to show me a clip before the show so I can kind of get some context.
I wasn't thinking about it until you just, told this story. But anyway, so Tahiri is, video vixen or has been. She has been a video vixen. I'm not calling her a has been, but whatever. She used to date Joe Budden. That's like the claim to fame. And so she was on Love and Hip Hop for a spell as they were going through their.
Is this the one that I guess all his songs started being about forever?
I guess. The only Joe Budden song I know.
I just heard that a lot of his music was hurt after a while.
It might be. She's the one.
All you know is Pump It Up?
That's it. That's all I got.
Okay, I'm gonna need you to listen to like Black Cloud. Like, look, Joe got that song. Don't do Joe Budden no justice on the mic. That's
send me some links.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, that's as far. And that was You Got Served. So hey, again, if you're judging, don't judge me. Anyway,
I'm judging you. Go ahead.
So Tahiri's his ex, and so she's now dating this dude named Vado, who I assume is a rapper from New York that was also on Love and Hip Hop for a spell, but we don't really know him. Anyway, they're together. The story goes they have been friends. They decided to do this thing. So he's watched her in these other relationships, and is insecure about she's not like that with me, like she was with her exes, so that's why they're there. Anyways, throughout the course of their weeks there's some back and forth, but this particular night she's getting really upset with them. They are in an exercise where anytime she does something that he has listed as like a problem for him, and so one of the things was just like raising her voice, like she's always yelling or being argumentative. So they said, anytime your partner does one of these things that you've listed here, give them a shock. And so they're not aware of why they're being shocked because they're just doing what they normally do. But I think it was supposed to ring a bell for them. So she's not doing anything as far as she's concerned. And he keeps shocking her, but she gets louder and she's getting more and more aggressive. So he's letting her have it to the point where she takes 2 apples. Now, I've never been hit in the face with an apple. I've never been hit in the face. Well, I've never been hit in the face. I was like, no domestic violence, but those of us who know, the things that we went
through. If you know.
There you go. So I've never been hit in the face with an apple. Let's go back there. But I assume that that's not pleasant. And she hit him with not 1 apple, 2 apples to the face. And he got up and he walked away. And I'm like, oh my God. I sat up out the bed on this one because my initial thought was, oh my God, he's going to kill her. Like I was just like, oh my God, not on TV. But he walked away and I was like, oh bro, oh my God, thank you. I hate that happened to you, but thank you for not doing that. So they go on to the group setting or whatever, and they're sitting down. And so they're debriefing. So like Tahiri, kind of what was going on. And she goes, well, I just think he's trying to make me the person that I used to be so that I look crazy in front of you all. And before she could finish her sentence, this dude had jumped up and put both hands around her neck. And it happened so fast. I screamed like it was me. I screamed and got on the horn like, oh my God, did y'all see?
Like you was calling the show to tell them to stop.
What is going on? But the bottom line, and wrong. But the bottom line was I was pissed because of how the show handled it, which was they removed him from the show. They removed him from the house. They kept him on the show. So he got to come back every day and do the exercises. But because she was in fear, he had to stay at the hotel. And so they just kept kind of driving this narrative that he was this monster. And again, I didn't think he should have done what he did, but nobody ever said, roll the tape, right? Like, this is where it started. It probably started before the apples, but it definitely had something to do with the apples. And then we're here. I walked away from that. And then you make me look like, I'm crazy. And so he hit a snap. Now, again, got to be in control of yourself. But to your point, it's like, why was the responsibility all on him? And I was not caping just because she was a woman or I should have felt more for her. But I was like, this is some bull. I was on my Twitter with the psychologist, like, you got that entirely wrong. Like, if you're going to sit somebody down, they kept replaying the clip over and over, but they didn't replay the Apple clip over and over. Like, give us both of them. Don't replay any of them. But I'm just saying, if you were going to do that, why not? And it made him look like somebody that strangled this girl for no reason. And then by the end, they get to decide if they're going to stay together or not or whatever. And so she's like in this tearful, I'm standing up for little girls everywhere. That's probably
little girls that eat apples. And here's the crazy part in hearing that. Like, it never, at no point, they didn't stop the show, remove her from the house, because had they done that, the other part never happens. When you address her behavior immediately, like, they just went on like business as usual, it sounds like.
Yes. And as I was reading the tweets, I follow the hashtags, a lot of people, we were all feeling the same way. Like, if you were going to make an example, then both of them should have went home. Or like you said, now, granted, nobody was there, but they have cameras everywhere. So I'm like, once you saw her assault him, because that's really what it was, if that was addressed, to your point, the next thing would not have happened. But let's just say, you let it ride until that does happen. Everybody saw both. So the host or the psychologist and the judge, they didn't see what she did per se, but the other folks that were the other couples were there for both things, and everybody was just like, what is going on? But it was kind of like, then they started following the lead of the psychologist, like, oh yeah, well he shouldn't have done that. Well, that was awful, and then everybody was just all focused on him. And so I definitely didn't think it was fair. I wasn't getting into, if she did this and so she deserved that. I didn't feel like that. What I felt was these two things happened and they should have looked at them and treated them accordingly. And they didn't.
Yeah, I'm more of a proponent. I'm not going to get into who deserved what. It's like I tell my kids when they come in my office and they hear what's going to happen to them. And they tell me, oh, that's too much. I was like, you chose the action. You don't now get to choose the consequence. And so I think that's what people are doing here is you want to tell him what the appropriate response in anger is to being assaulted. Because now this is an exaggeration that I'm about to make, a complete exaggeration. Let's just say he hit her in the face with 2 apples and she cuts him. He should like, girl, yeah, you got to defend your, like, I think people would have justified it. You know what I mean?
That's pretty sad. But after watching that, I actually am inclined to agree.
Yeah. So I just like, it's a tough one, and that's a double standard that's not really in our favor. I am not justifying men hitting women, but I do believe in everybody keep their hands to themselves.
That's it.
And it's just this belief that because we are men that we inherently are created with the propensity to a higher emotional standard. And that is not the case because
understand the physicality, like,
right. Well, what I mean is this, like we express ourselves physically, be it positive or negative. We express physically. You see what I'm saying? Now, we are always expected to assert ourselves physically in your defense, but never in defense of ourselves when it comes to you. You know what I mean? It's when it's a woman, oh, remember she's a woman. Now, if it's another dude or something like that, it's, oh, yeah, like, you know, but harm is harm.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And that's how every man has a threshold. And to tell me I have to decipher the amount of force based on the same threat because of gender is a little like wait, what? You know, like no, like you mean me harm. You know.
Point. You know, because if
So
you're in fight or flight or fight,
yeah,
yikes. I never
yeah.
thought of it like that. And I definitely have been, I mean, let's say I didn't care about men's feelings, but maybe that's what it was. Until I had a nephew. Because I thought about it, like, if some girl hit him, how would I feel about that?
Mm-hmm. And so
again, I would not say, you know, knock her block off, but I you know, it seemed really absolute before we had boys in our family because it was all girls. It was like all we, you know, protect yourselves and protect each other because we were all we really had. And that in some cases would be protect yourself from boys and or men. So I never really thought about what it looked like on the other side because we didn't have that growing up. It's all, you know, sisters and girl cousins. And then the next generation came and it was all boys. And so, yeah, imagining, you know, providing they're not doing nothing stupid, that they're, you know, just living their life, or you're in a disagreement where you don't go along with what somebody says, or you don't, you know, return their advances, and all of a sudden they're throwing stuff at you and kicking and scratching and whatever.
Yeah, it's tough, especially with kids, because like we always talk about how girls mature faster than boys. Like when you kids, they the same size, and a lot of the girls are stronger than the boys at that age when they're the same age. So I'm like, hey, you know, I can't. In my position, I can't discriminate when kids come in my office like that. You know, it's like, oh, like a boy and a girl gets in a fight. I don't punish the boy harder and more because he's a. But that's like, I can't penalize you for your gender. You know what I mean, and vice versa. You got in a fight, y'all both getting the same thing. You know, or depending on who started it or who did what. You know, but I've had several fights where the boy's the one coming in crying because he done got hands put on him. It ain't look at that when you that age, when you a kid, it's like, listen, this, you know, and I'm not, you know, I don't know, and I wonder the messaging that you tell boys and girls, like, oh, you don't hit girls, but you steady getting your ass beat. You know, mama whooping you, big sister whooping on you, like all this, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
At some point, but I don't know. I just it's very tough, and I just think, like you said earlier, we have to start having those conversations. So that brings us to our final thoughts this week for race to the worst. It's still an ongoing conversation, but what are your final thoughts, Dre?
I would say, you know, and thinking about the race to the worst, instead of trying to be in the first place or break the tape to be the worst, you know, if we really do start to look at each other as partners and allies, you know, we can make that worse better, right? Like, you can't always stop me from experiencing something bad, but you can be a place of refuge, or you could be a place of understanding, or you can be a place of really, you know, like whatever, you know, just to make that fall a little softer. So instead of us trying to fight and jockey and volley for number one when it comes to hardship, you know, really considering like working together. Like, I know there are a lot of things that I've experienced that you couldn't jump in front of me for, but I could call you and say, like, you know, this is what happened. Now, whether or not you agree with what I did and all that kind of stuff, but I never felt like I couldn't share that. And so that in itself, can make things better, if you will. So I just think, looking at, and it's not going to be everybody, because everybody's not your friend. Everybody's not going to be your ally. But if you have a man in your life as a woman, or if you have a woman in your life as a man, stop looking at them as, your enemy or as opposition, and realize like, yeah, you're not experiencing it like me, but it doesn't mean that you're not experiencing it. And so what can we do together to get through, whatever it is? That's my thought. What about you?
My final thought is your experience doesn't have to be worse than mine for me to advocate for you. I often hear like the saying, oh, no one is as disrespected as the Black woman, right? And I'm just somebody, you don't need to tell me that. You being disrespected at all. You could be the least disrespected person in the world, but the fact that you experience disrespect is enough for me to advocate for you. So it's not a matter, for me, it's not a matter of the measure of problems or trauma or barriers that you experience. It's the fact that you have them at all for me. Mm-hmm. And so it gets hard for me to advocate when we have to argue over just how bad you have it, rather than supporting one another. So it's just moving into the space of, okay, I got it. You're experiencing disrespect. You're experiencing hurt, pain, trauma, past, whatever. Okay, I got that. Now let me advocate for you. We don't need to belabor just how bad it is. Let's get into it so that I can be there for you. And you can't guilt me into doing that, and sometimes that's how it feels like, hey, the more guilty I make him feel, the more likely he is to advocate. And the opposite is what's true, So for me, it's like, help me help you. Let's build each other up. Our problems are not mutually exclusive. They exist simultaneously. And it's not about who goes through it more. It's the fact that we go through it at all, that we need to be there for each other. And with that, y'all, this has been another episode of The Crossroads. I'm your man, Barzini.
And I'm your girl, Dre Renee.
And always remember, be free to be you.
We want to thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and register for our email list for more episodes and projects from your hosts, Barzini and Dre Renee. Until next time, this has been the Crossroads Podcast. And remember, be free to be you.